You're live, the sign says. So, this is the third time today. I went live earlier on just to try out the sound and the vision. It was a bit glitchy. I don't know how this will be. I've changed the microphone in case it was something to do with the processing that the mic required. Not that it's particularly sophisticated, but every little bit helps. And I also went live about a minute ago, but there was no camera. It wasn't switched on. Well, actually, it was being used by another app. How foolish of me. But that brings me to, I suppose, what this channel is about. What can you expect? Different things. And I hope you like different things. Generally, for the moment, I'm focusing on the podcast episodes. And I've already chatted to someone. I may well chat to them again. And in the future, I will have guests, some of those hopefully live, but certainly pre-recorded. Right now, because of logistics and people's diaries, etc., that hasn't been possible. But in terms of content, whether it's with a guest or not, what I'm focusing on is, well, it's a little bit diffuse, deliberately so, because you, like me, probably have different interests. It's like if you think about any one given day, you're likely to read something that attracts your attention. Maybe you go and explore it a little bit more. Maybe you go and research it a little bit. And then something over here either attracts your attention or you have pre-planned and you go and do that thing. None of us are the same as each other. We're all unique and we have these disparate, different, and to use that word again, unique interests. Of course, we can join clubs and groups and communities where there is an overlap, and that's great and that's lovely to do as well. So things are a little bit spread out, at least initially, but how can I then help you to make sense of what this stuff is about and will be about? I suppose the best way is to consider, whilst a lot of what I've been talking about, I've talked about for years, and I've always thought it was relevant. I think these days it is possibly even more relevant. Things have been unsettled and unsettling for, well, a few short years. And what do we need to help ourselves during these challenging, interesting times? I think we need to have the tools and strategies to allow us to overcome obstacles and sometimes to allow us just to get through the day, just to keep going. And so if you consider that things are essentially on a spectrum, you could think of it as a Venn diagram as well if you want, but let's stick with the spectrum for the moment. At this end, I want to talk about mental health. I want to talk about those core things that we need to be aware of that can help us. Now, I'm not the only person talking about that, so I won't dwell on it, but it will be in the mix for sure because it's so important. Think of that as the foundation. If we want to perform and sometimes peak perform in our lives, we need a firm foundation. And for me, that is getting those things in place that can allow us to function at an optimum level, or at least even sometimes just to function. And so in terms of mental health, I will talk to some people who specialize in that area. I'll also look at research. And I look at research not simply because I have some knowledge or some expertise in that area. Sometimes I don't at all. But I look at it to unpack it. I'm not bad at understanding what is good research and what is just hearsay and someone's opinion. And that's fine and that's valid, but I would hope to transmit that to you, to essentially allow you to hear what I had to say and hopefully then allow you to make a discerning choice about, should I spend my time looking at this, or I want to delve into these things more deeply? And of course, it's still an opinion. And I want to emphasize that. And I'm not saying with any of this stuff that I'm the guru or the absolute expert. I have an interest, and I hope I can unpack things to allow you to decide to look at things more in more detail, more deeply, I was going to say, and also to allow you to perhaps ask questions about some of that stuff. So it's unboxing, unpacking areas in, I suppose, life that may well be of interest. So mental health. Then in the middle here, I would say that once we have ourselves with that firm foundation, then thinking about resilience, thinking about emotional intelligence, thinking about capacity, thinking about goals, that's also important. And that stuff is in the mix too. And ultimately, if I start here, then it's over here. If it's a spectrum, it's about leadership. Now, this can be confusing because I talk about leadership and sometimes I talk about it interchangeably. I am interested in what those people who are in positions of power and influence are doing. And some of those behaviors are questionable, and we have to question it. We have to call it out. We have to say, hold on a second. Do I agree with that? Absolutely. No, I don't. This is important, and I think it's becoming more and more important. So you will also hear me talking about specific individuals or groups, maybe governments, NGOs. I'm not a politician. I'm not someone who's an expert in any of those areas, but I think, I imagine like you, what I'm fairly reasonable at is to look at things and think, that's just not moral. That's just not ethical. So I do talk about those things. And also, I talk about self leadership. So there's positional leadership and there's a leadership of self. Now, I suppose there's two things in there. One, you can look at the word leadership and consider yourself not to be a leader. And I think number one, you are. Everybody is a leader. They are a leader or can be within their family, within their community, and of course, within an organization. That doesn't mean to say that there is positional leadership, but everyone has a say. Everyone can make a difference. And if we give up, if we say, oh, well, that's somebody over there, that's this person, little old me, I can't do anything. I think that's ultimately a recipe for disaster, because if more and more people do that, then where will society be? Where will the culture be? And bear in mind that a lot of the people who decide that, hey, they should have a platform and should have a voice are often, not always, the wrong people. The empty vessel makes the loudest noise type thing. So we have to get used to, all of us, speaking up and realizing that our opinion is valid. Now, you may not agree with my opinion, and I may not agree with yours, but I'll sure as heck listen. And hopefully you will at least listen to some of this stuff with an open mind. And if you agree, that's fantastic. And within that, take a little, I suppose, sideways step to consider that I think it's important for all of us to be considerate and to listen to folks with an open mind and to realize that there will be differences, but we can still have a conversation about it. So there's that type of leadership that can impact the community, the business, the environment, irrespective of where you are on an org chart or where you think you are. And if you're saying to yourself you don't count, then maybe we need to look at self-worth and self-esteem in there as well. The other, I think, let's say, purest type of self-leadership is self-development. It is being of, I suppose, a mindset to understand how valuable you are, to understand that if we take an example of the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. So the fixed mindset will say, I can't do that. No one else can do it. I certainly can't. Or maybe someone else can do it, but hey, not me. I can't do that. And I can't learn and I can never do those things. But a growth mindset says, well, hold on a second. This is an opportunity for learning. This is an opportunity for me to understand a bit more about that situation, that subject. And whilst I won't specifically, well, I might actually, but I'm not intending at the moment to talk about growth v fixed mindset in one particular live or one particular video. It may crop up, never say never. But what I want to illustrate is that life itself is about learning. It is about saying to ourselves, how can I be as good as I can be? Why give up? Why say I can't learn that. I don't understand that. I could never do that thing. That's often because of habits, and those habits are often because of conditioning. And that conditioning, well, it's because maybe some people passed on beliefs, limiting beliefs or otherwise to you. Maybe the people around you are saying you can't do that or you shouldn't do that. And so, also in the mix, in terms of the self leadership part, the self development part, I'll probably talk about goals. So, if you are then considering what all the stuff is, if you look at some of the videos, if you play back, if you need to, what I've just said, hopefully you see that it fits into that relatively broad, but not ridiculously broad, I hope, area. And some people, I think, are possibly out there looking for the answer. And I've done that myself. And sometimes I still do. It's one of those things that we can do. I don't think that there is one answer. I think there are answers. I think there are strategies. I think that each and every one of us, I've talked about this before, has a metaphoric toolkit. And in that toolkit, we have those things that we take out to use in any particular situation. But sometimes we forget that we have those tools available to us. So maybe some of the stuff will be a reminder. Sometimes we don't quite know how to use that tool properly. Sometimes we need to tidy things up and maybe clean some bits and pieces in there so that this particular strategy can be used more effectively. And sometimes we've got to get a brand new way of doing things and put that in the toolkit. Because if you consider when you are in different situations, whether it's just needing to get up out of bed in the morning, or worried about an exam, or challenged at work, whatever it may be, there are things that we can bring to bear that can help us in those situations. And I'm, of course, not for a fraction of a second saying I know all of them. I know some. I know some, and I research some. And a lot of what I suppose I understand and know is because I've made the mistakes. I've made the mistakes in life, in work, in leadership as well. I have made those mistakes. I've hopefully learned from them, but I have an understanding of when things haven't worked for me and haven't worked for other people. Is that understanding universal? Is it about all things in all situations? Absolutely not. And that, I suppose, reminds me that one of the things that I think is important in life, and whether it's meeting people face to face, in person, or indeed online, is to be as authentic as possible, is to be who we are and not to become a fake version of ourselves. That doesn't mean to say that we don't have personas, because we do have personas. The person that you may be with your best friend could be different with your mate at work. Maybe it's one and the same person, of course. Maybe you're slightly different as a parent as you are to the child, as it were, albeit probably adult, of your mum, your dad, the sibling, whatever. And so those personas, yes, they shift, but our core, who we are, in my opinion, it doesn't or shouldn't, generally speaking, unless there's something difficult or odd going on. So we have core values, and those values should show up. Doesn't mean to say we don't get it wrong, doesn't mean to say we don't screw up. Of course we do. I get it wrong and I screw up all the time, but I attempt to get back to being on track with that moral compass and within what I consider to be a really important ethical area that I believe I should exist within. Again, complete with flaws and foibles and idiosyncrasies and the baggage of mistakes that I carry with me to remind myself, but hopefully not to weigh myself down. Anyway, that's a bit of an overview, 15 minutes-ish. I don't know how this will turn out. It may be that the sound and vision has lagged, gone out of sync, and it has juddered a bit. Don't know. If it is viewable and listenable, I will keep it there. I hope you find it interesting, and I hope that we can converse going forward, learning things together. Anyway, for the moment, for me, bye for now.